Alright, so next up is the pilot bearing. So I've kind of already got it set in there, but it just sets in there, and you can use a piece of wood or, oh, excuse me, you can use a piece of wood or a socket to get that thing started. And then you're gonna want to use a socket that is, in my case, a 13/16, which happens to be the perfect diameter to match that bearing. And then we're gonna just tap it in real slow and real safe, all the way in until it kind of stops. So. Alright, and there is a small shelf in there that it will stop on, so you'll feel it as you're tapping. Just don't go swinging for the fences. Just give it some light taps and she'll seat in there. Next up, we're gonna get the clutch going. Flywheel next, and then we'll use the alignment tool and get the clutch on and mounted. Okay, so torquing the flywheel. So follow the instructions on the kit that you got. If you're doing OEM, they're torque to yield. There's an OEM spec on that. This is not. So this is a Clutch Masters kit. It does not have torque to yield bolts. And so because these are 12 by 1.5 bolts, we're going to be torquing them to 80 foot-pounds. The easiest way to hold this that I found, obviously you can have a helper grab the crank. If you are by yourself, I can't show you because I don't have a tripod, but if you thread this bolt in and you get yourself a nice long screwdriver, you can wedge the screwdriver into those, and while with your other hand torquing these so that this doesn't spin around. Alright, so we've got that on there about as straight as we can. These hex bolts around the edge on this Clutchmaster clutch are torqued to 20 foot-pounds. I went ahead and added just a tiny dab of blue Loctite to each one of them, and then you're going to want to torque it kind of in a crisscross over and over again. As the pressure plate sets down, the bolts that you just torqued are going to need torqued again until you can go across and have none of them spin. So it's going to take multiple passes. Just make sure you get them nice and tight. Alright, so we get the manual here ready to go in. In this case, we're going to be getting rid of most of this shifter setup. So as you can see, the factory setup has kind of a one-sided selector. That's this bottom piece here. So it only selects from one side. So Gragistic makes this double-sided option here, and so it's a kit. You've got this piece that replaces that guy right there. It comes with new rods, C-clips, but essentially, see if I can get you a view back. It essentially replaces that rod and gives it a little bit more of a precise feel by having it wrap around both sides. And so this end's going to go to our Coolerworx shifter, and then this end over here will attach here with that guy there. And that's going to give us a lot more precise shift selecting. So we're basically just going to be getting rid of this whole assembly here and this, and just kind of re-engineering the whole thing. So these little clips here, they just pop off, and then all this slides out, and we'll replace it. So to get this guy off, you just essentially pop that little tab there, and then this will open, and then you can just pull it out. Alright, so this has this little protective ring here. You just use a flathead and pop it off, and then there's a dowel in there that we're just going to tap out using a punch. So I have a punch here. I'm just going to tap it out. Oh, might not even need to tap out. I guess it just pushes out. There you go. It just pushes right out once the ring's off. Alright, so we're just going to clean this off. get all the grime and gross off of it. I'm going to use just a little bit of this high temp wheel bearing and disc brake grease, just a little dab under there, and then we'll slide our new end on here and put it back together the way that it came apart. Alright, so we got ourselves all installed here. New selector, rod, pretty self-explanatory. You got some little plastic or some bushings go between here, and then you got your C-clip that holds it on. You're going to want to line up that arch to match the old one so it can kind of go over this guibo here. Alright, so we're going to start doing the shifter. So essentially step one is going to be to pull this surround up. This is just held in with pop clips, so you just lift on it. There's going to be some wires if you're going from automatic here. So we'll just go down here, squeeze these, get these off, and then what you want to do is squeeze here like you're going to put it in gear, and then lift straight up. And probably need two hands because it's never been off before, but basically, yeah, you just squeeze and you lift straight up and this whole thing will come off. So I need my other hand, so I'll be right back. Alright, so this takes some pulling if it's never been off before, but essentially you're squeezing it to bring it into proper position, and I had to pull all the way back, really tug, and it came out. So that's out. You got two little plugs right here, real annoying to take off. You have to squeeze the, that looks like I bent that one a little bit, but you kind of have to squeeze the inside of them to get them off, it seemed like. So pretty annoying to get off. And then you got this one here, the ribbon cable to take off as well. So now that that's all off, then we can get down in here, and I believe that there's two or three of these Torx heads right here that we got to get off and out of the way. Alright, so now that this is apart, next thing we're going to do is take the rest of the surrounding trim off so we can get down to all these bolts. We got some Torx heads that are holding this thing down. We've got the shift cable over here that is hanging below the car that we need to pull out. And we just need to get the rest of this whole assembly out of the way here. So we're going to pull this next. It looks like there's a couple Phillips here. And we'll have to see how that comes out. Alright, so with those two Phillips heads, this just lifts up. We're going to unplug our window switches here. Get this trim completely out of the way. Be careful not to damage those window switches. We're going to end up reusing this whole bezel. And then it looks like there's a couple more Phillips up here. And then we can get this next piece out of the way. Probably going to have to unplug this stuff as well. I believe that it comes apart from here down. I don't think we're going to have to mess with this. So just basically these two pieces. Alright, so this is loose, but we needed to get this. This, you gotta be careful not to pull the door off, but this just pulls straight horizontal towards you. And the pop clips will come out. Please ignore our previous owner did some creative wiring. We will be cleaning that up, so ignore those wires. Yours probably won't have that. But once you get up here, there is two more screws. So we'll get those two screws out, and then we should be able to get this whole piece out, and that should be all we need to get to here to be able to convert our shifter. Okay, so once you get those upper two screws off, there's a handful of plug-ins in the back. They're all pretty self-explanatory, so you just pull them out, and those are for your heated seats and traction control and all that. So and cigarette lighter, of course. So we're got all that out of the way. Now we can get down and see this shifter. So there's three of these Torx bolts that look like it's holding down this assembly here. So we are going to take those out. Looks like we've got our shift lock out here being held down by this bolt. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to figure out how to get that to disconnect. But yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so to get this shift lock out, you just take out that 10mm, and then you use a little flat head, and there's a dowel this sits on. You just slide it over, and this will come out of the way. And it looks like we got one more plug in here, so, and I think that's probably for our neutral safety. We'll have to see. So yeah, we'll get this plug in out of the way and go from there. Alright, and there we have it. So that's the hole down to the floor. My transmission's still out, so there's nothing there. We'll want to plug this with plastic or rubber grommet cap. I'll have to run to the store and try to see if I can get the right size for that. As far as, I think that we're probably just going to tuck away a lot of this stuff, so we're not going to need this this lockout here, and we're not going to need these wires here, and then I don't think that we're going to need these wires, but these are still here, window, and then obviously your center console stuff for your heated seats and stuff, and accessory plug and all that. But for the most part, I think most of it's gonna get tucked away. So next up, we're gonna mount our Coolerworx direct mount plate and shifter right here. And then once that's in, then we'll go down and we'll do the pedals, and once the pedals are in, then we'll put the transmission in. You could probably put the transmission in first if you want to, but I just feel like it'd be easier to have more room. So yep, we're gonna get that direct mount put in, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's our Coolerworx direct mount system here. Pretty neat. It does come kind of pre-assembled. We'll have to take it apart. You'll see that this is set up to match those 3 holes down there. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take these holder nuts off of this, and that's going to allow us to get this thing mounted into the chassis there. So we're going to mount the plate down, and then these 4 are going to go to the shifter itself. So the shifter is going to sit here, and this is according to the instructions, cone down is how they're showing the picture. So we're going to put it in cone down and go from there. Alright, so the instructions here, this is going to come apart. So I've got the top off basically. So this is going to come apart and basically sandwich between the tunnel there. So this bottom plate goes under the car, this middle plate goes above, and then it sandwiches down, and then this and this piece here, this will give you some adjustment, so you can adjust where you like it. But we'll do this last, and so we can take the silver piece and the black piece off, and then we'll take these Allens out, and then we'll go ahead and get it sandwich plated in. They don't want you to tighten down this positioning until the transmission's in and all the linkage is there, so that you can make sure that you got your positioning where you want it. So but in the meantime, we can get this plate all assembled, and we can get this in and go from there. Alright, so a little bit of a correction here. So if your car is already a manual, then you'll probably need this bottom plate here to do the sandwiching from underneath and above, as the instructions show. Since this was already an automatic, it's already got nut certs in it, so theoretically, let's see if these thread in. I'm wondering if we might be able to just use the OEM hardware and mount this thing just without the bottom plate. So either that or we're gonna have to knock these out, it looks like. So let me figure that out. Alright, so it looks like that's gonna work maybe better, just because I've already got those threaded holes in the chassis here. The only downside is that the OEM bolts are a little long because they don't have that gap where the old shifter setup was. So what I'm probably going to do at this point is I'm probably going to run down to the hardware store and try to find some bolts, same pitch and everything, that are about half this length and run them. Now if you want to follow the instructions, you'll probably have to knock those out and put the plate underneath. In this case, it looks like the easiest solution is just going to be going straight in. I don't see any problems with that. So alright, so it's M6 by 1.0 is thread pitch for these already factory nut certs. So I went ahead and just grabbed some shorter ones. They're about the half the length of the factory one, and got some lock washers to go with them. Alright, so we've got our adapter plate bracket bolted to the shifter itself. I went ahead and went with the blue knob because I'm going to have a blue harness bar. I think it'll look good. This is all mounted in here, nice and ready to go. And so we'll have our sliding plate, our spacer plate put on the boot, and then this. And we won't lock it down until we've got everything mounted and make sure all the gears are where we want them to be. Alright, in this boot, as the instructions say, they want it upside down. The last screw fits perfectly in this spacer plate. And then when you put this in, you're just going to make sure that goes through nice. Make sure it's all mounted good, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so we're loosely mounted in there. This still has some play forward and back. We got to figure out what feels the best. I was just test fitting this. It looks like, I think the instructions might mention it, but we are going to have to trim a notch in the bottom of this little ashtray area. So we may or may not lose our ashtray in the process, but I'm not a smoker, so it doesn't really bother me. We might have to come up with like a creative little solution there, but yeah, there it is, all mostly mounted. This basically concludes what I was trying to accomplish as far as, you know, getting this in so that I can get the trans in and the pedal assembly in. We're probably just going to leave this out for the time being, and until we're all the way done, and then we'll go through and do wires and trim and clean everything up. So but yeah, it looks like just about that much of it's going to interfere, so we'll have to go from there. But for what I'm building, I do need the reverse lockout function, so yep. Alright, so we're going to be changing the shift boot to go with our fancy new shifter. So we need to retain this ring here. So basically I'm just taking my pocket knife and running it through the edge there, just to kind of separate that glue from the leather so that we can get this plastic ring out and reuse it for our new shift knob, our shift boot, excuse me. Alright, once you've got it separated, this is a Condor Speedshop boot, and it has a nice elastic. You just kind of stretch it over the edge. It's going to grab on. You don't necessarily have to wrap it. You could if you wanted to. We'll have to see if it stays. I don't really feel a need to put glue on it. It seems pretty tight. I found that it fit best with the 2 stitches on the 2 shorter corners. I tried it a few different directions, but this is how it fit. So we'll just pull our knob off, slide this over, put the knob back on when we're all said and done. Alright, so we're under the car here. This whole unit's probably going to end up sliding forward just a little bit, but we've got it out here ready to mount up. This guy swivels. Still need to plug that hole, and got our clutch all mounted and ready to go still. So next thing that we're gonna do is get this old throw bearing out. It just pulls. We're gonna clean this all up, put a little bit of grease on these splines, put a little bit clean this up, put some new grease on here, and then we've got a new throwout bearing, or release bearing, whatever you want to call it. And basically it goes in this way, and you can see there's little knobs on the fork that ride on those little ears there. So it just clicks in. Alright, so we got our new motor mounts on. They're kind of loose, but snug enough where they're not going to fall. And we're going back in right now with this transmission. Alright, we are almost all the way installed. Got the transmission, see if I can get it to focus. All the way in, got the starter back in. I mean, it was reverse of taking it out, except for this one's a little bit shorter, so a little easier, honestly. That top right bolt at 2 o'clock that we were fighting, still a pain in the butt. Still had to have somebody pry the transmission over so I could get on it with a wobbly. But got it all in, got it situated. Fell in pretty easy compared to what I expected. The clutch and everything lined up nice, so everything's good to go. The automatic uses these 2 bolts, and the manual uses the forward 2 bolts. So as long as you've got the manual bracket, it'll go right in. So I'm gonna finish jacking this up and getting the bolts back in place, tighten down all these mounts, and then we can finish attaching this and see if we can find all of our gears. Alright, we're all mounted up. Got the cross member mounted, got our bushings mounts nice and tight. Everything's in its place where it should be, and next we're just going to attach this here. So it's going to attach the same way as up here, with the dowel, plastic, and then the clip. Alright, excuse the mess. So we're all linked up below. So we have first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Now, as part of the instructions, you have these stop screws here. So the screw on the left is, you're supposed to set it right where fifth is so that there's no extra play, so that you can find fifth easy. And then the one on the left, you should be able to go onto first without traveling further, and then you can find reverse right there when you pull the reverse lock out here. So that feels good with the car not running. So second, third, fourth, fifth. So we will I've had to adjust these a few times. So for me, it feels the best in this configuration with the bracket slid all the way back. I was having a hard time finding second with it further forward. So got that all set up. Now we need to clean up this space and trim our interior piece. But yeah, got our shifter ready to go. Alright, so I wanted to kind of show you, excuse the mess behind there, I've just been test fitting, but you do have to cut quite a bit out of the ashtray area for this Coolerworx shifter. So because it kind of sets in there, it kind of rocks in like this, and because of that you got to cut all the way in the back, otherwise it won't let you go past there. So here, let me pull it out, show you. So there's a idea of kind of how I had to cut. I think I could have gone from this angle to the right just a little bit more, or more towards the driver's side, as my hole is a little bit off center, but you do have to get pretty much all the way up there and all the way through this big bulge right here, so that it will go in there. And then once you do, it'll set over this. Now I need to get this all reconnected here, so I can get this thing buttoned up. I still need to find a plug for that hole there, but yeah, I mean, you do have to. I mean, the Coolerworx shifter is great. Maybe one of the downsides versus, you know, one of the Gragistics or whatever is that you do have to trim in here, but kind of necessary for the reverse lockout, as the reverse lockout pin is what you have to trim for. So kind of is what it is, but you do have to trim a little bit there. All right, we're all put back together with our trim and everything. You can kind of put this how you want it, if you want it down or up. I kind of like it up. I did have to trim the front side of this after I got it back together. I'll put it in the video when I was doing it, but just for explanation purposes, the little lip on this piece here that is covered up by this wood trim, that lip down in there is I had to trim a little bit because the reverse lockout, when you would try to move it, would get stuck. So, but that's it, all installed, trim on, new boot and everything.